Stuart's back, and I'm back.
Yay!
Yay! So, as always, try to leave it up to the audience for the questions. Anyone want to start? Anyone? Yep.
Well, the obvious one is, what was the inspiration for this movie?
Yes, it's people ask me that when I did Preaching to the Perverted, which was about the fetish club scene, and it was always a difficult one to answer, because, well, they may assume, well, you know, he must have gone to fetish clubs, so, but I was not in any way a serial killer. So I answer that what gave me the idea was actually quite unexpected, I suppose. You know, when sometimes people, certainly when you get older, you can like have more of like half dream state when you're waking up in the morning or going to bed at night or in the middle of the night. But I was imagining a series of videos on the internet whereby people appeared to agree to be murdered. It was as simple as that. And I worked back from how could that crazy situation come to arise? You know, would it be real? Is it a hoax? Could people agree, if they were picked in the right circumstances by the right killer, to agree to die? And of course there have been cases, you know, such as the German man who wanted his penis cut off and to be consumed along with his penis. You know, there have been cases where people agree. So of course, but this is, in the end, I worked it out as a kind of satire of a delusional state of mind of the killer, whereby, you know, serial killers always justify their crimes. You know, either it's a prostitute, all prostitutes must die, or all of a certain ethnic minority must die, or all people with... Another inspiration for the film was the man who thought all cyclists must die, and I was cycling in Richmond Park, and I missed him by about 20 minutes before he murdered someone on the same cycle path on a bicycle. And that kind of shook me up a bit and thought, well, you know, I've got to try to make this film, and I've been thinking about that theme, and then it coalesced into this story. So,
had a hit on the head in the beginning when he had his accident with his bicycle. Was this the starting of why he did this?
yes, a long list of serial killers have qualified or graduated to serial killing by the knock on the head. Fred West, you know, a whole load of monsters who perhaps were not monsters before the knock on the head. Have through a contusion, you know, whatever, problems with the frontal lobe from an impact become killers. And of course it's tongue-in-cheek, the film, but many of the things that are in it are actually drawn from real cases and actual killer case books. For those who know their serial killers, you might even recognise a few. I can share that information if you want to know it, about what was actually picked from real cases, but that's one of the things. And from that point on, he becomes a killer he never would have if he hadn't been hit on the head.
So there will be a second movie because...
He'd been hit on the head again, yeah.
No, not because of that, but in the end I think another police officer fall the stairs down.
Oh yes, it could be him, you're right. It could well be, but of course, that's, yeah, it's got a cartoonish as well, isn't it? It's a kind of cartoonish reason, but sadly real.
No one else?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you get everything you wanted into the movie, or did budget not allow that?
Well, you know, filmmaking is always a struggle, a war to you know, try and bring onto the screen your vision, you know, and the budget is always the problem, and probably whatever budget you have, you know, mega budget or micro or in between. And I would say that I was happy with, in general, with what we achieved with a limited budget. It comes also from some experience, you know, having done decades of TV drama and movies, that, you know, you kind of know what you can try and achieve, which meant we moved fast. The main shoot was 24 days. There were a few compromises or things like, you know, I'd written a film which I thought, oh, it's mostly set in one house, it'd be really cheap to do. But of course we never found a house with everything in it. So that's about 4 different places. And he falls down, you know, in one house, the stairs in another, and then he lands in a third. So it's that kind of compromises. But No, in general, I was happy. Yeah, I mean, of course, with more money, could have achieved certain more scale or bigger set piece scenes. But nowadays, with modern technology, you achieve a lot of things, like the riot footage where we put out on the internet. Using social media ourselves, is who's been in the riots and has some nice footage and would like to share it. That's how we built certain scenes around real footage. Cheap to do, Yes.
Were there any particular darling scenes that you had to kill down a bit?
To shorten.
Yeah.
The first cut of the film was pretty long. What you see is 83 minutes. Slightly less, slightly more than that. Sorry, but it's 87 with the titles, but it's about 85. So the first cut of the film was at least 2 hours. Wow. And I was quite surprised, because you expect it to be long, but we didn't have to actually cut out that many scenes, and some scenes, were trimmed down quite a lot. But I don't remember anything that was sort of painful. It was more about wheedling down the content of each scene to its absolute minimum, keep the pace going. The beginning was quite complicated to get the structure right. Obviously, I was going for a different kind of structure, but that's how it was written, in the sense that it is... I don't know if people got confused at all, but some people found it confusing, if you don't pay attention. But most people don't, about the time structure. But we didn't really change that. Yes.
Have you gotten any response from the British police force?
At the premiere at the Prince Charles Theatre in London, which is a classic independent cinema, a Asian lady got up at the back, Indian, origin, and said, "Hello, I'm a police officer." I thought, oh God, here we go. And I think it was an excellent film, she said. So actually, the only case we have is that we know she liked it. We know there was a couple of real police in it. The guy who trained our SWAT team, wasn't real SWAT, a real SWAT team guy. And he's on the video extras, and in fact, his daughter, who's in an extra in the film, is a policewoman shooter. So they seem to actually see the funny sides. I've had at least 2 or 3 police people who were not involved in the film who enjoyed it actually, which is quite funny, especially when you put cheeky things in the credits like, anyone. We do not encourage vigilantism. Anyone who wishes to do that should join the police, or we just said join the police instead, and but they didn't seem to mind, which was quite funny, really. I thought quite funny. Yes.
Any specific thought about it, choosing a bike police specifically?
Yes. Well, this bicycle, you see, it was always the traditional British bobby used to go around on a bicycle with a stupid hat, with the 19th century hat, and they were going around until quite recently on those bikes, but maybe 5 or 8 years ago, and then they phased them out completely, and they're all in cars. Certainly 10 years ago, you could see in the countryside still policemen who looked like that. Well, I thought that the ultimate sort of, useless English policeman, in the sense he does not have a gun, he does not have a motorbike or a car, he has a bicycle and a taser, which of course he does use to fatal effect. We're not allowed to call it a taser, by the way, or you get sued. Although tasers have killed at least 400 people in confrontations. If you say so, you can get sued by the Taser Corporation of America. So we did a couple of little changes on it to make it look not like a taser. So I just thought in doing a journey into the absurd, he is emasculated. He does not have a motor. He has his legs. He has the silly cycling, the day-glow, modern, politically correct sort of cycling outfit, and the cycling helmet. And therefore, and with his camera too, which they do have, those cameras, I thought, well, that's kind of like the ultimate sort of nerdish British bobby. And what could you get better than that? If he had a motorbike, he wouldn't, it is as what a French sales agent called it is Batman on a bicycle. It was sort of, it is absurd, that's why.
All right.
That's why. I am a cyclist, by the way. So, it's not a joke against cyclists. Yes?
To say something about the social comments in the movie?
Yes, well, it is important, and it's something which, when I wrote the script, it was becoming apparent to me that would be, since, for example, serial killers are relatively, as a construct for society, a relatively modern feature, aren't they? I mean, the first one was supposed to be Jack the Ripper. I'm sure there were plenty before, but their existence in society is magnified by the media, and now, of course, by social media and sites like serialkillercentral.com, a very interesting site for those who would like to buy the sort of, soiled underwear of death row killers and things. That kind of stuff you can buy there, memorabilia. I thought, well, let's do a script about this. And lo and behold, of the influence of the oxygen of publicity on these people and their interaction with the public. And since I wrote the script, between writing the script in 2011 and releasing the film, we had not 1, 2, but 3 mass killers or serial killers interacted with the internet or with webcams who were starting not far away in Oslo, of course, on Facebook, Breivik. Then was Mohammed Merah, the Toulouse serial killer of Jewish children and French soldiers, who had a GoPro camera, had planned to upload everything, did send it to Al Jazeera, but those 2 plans were thwarted. The footage does exist, it was never shown, of him killing these people. And another chap, Rocco Luca Magnotta, who isn't actually Italian, but changed his name to an Italian name, who dismembered his gay victim live on webcam and sent the body parts to Canadian government agencies, all of whom exist, none of whom were taken down on Twitter. 2 were on Twitter. Magnotta's site, Twitter feed, was not closed down, but he was arrested in an internet cafe boasting about his exploits in Berlin. So all that has happened, and I don't think it'll be long till you see a full-on, someone who knows, like Baz does, how to use the IP tunnels and the aliases and the VPNs. It's entirely possible to do. Some arse critic said in England, "Oh, it wouldn't last." It does. Like my answer is, Magnotta's site wasn't taken down. But you just need to be clever enough to keep moving, reposting videos, and know those tricks. They definitely will be a killer who is the full-blown item, I'm sure. Sadly.
There is also, it's also about Britain with the riots.
Absolutely true. Yes, sorry, I meant to answer that. At the time of the riots, the police and authorities were blaming things like BlackBerry Messenger, which I thought was very interesting and relevant. And of course, in society, the trouble is that the sort of morbid fascination with crime, or the malaise in society, as exemplified by folk heroes or folk anti-heroes. There was another killer who created a big sort of Twitter trend, a guy who was there was no ethnic aspect. He was simply a horrible man who went round up in Northumberland, who killed several people and blinded a policeman and later killed himself. And he had a big kind of social media following. And actually Facebook did have to take down his thing, but it was the idea of this poor guy, who'd been a victim of the penal system, was battling the police, some kind of Robin Hood idea. So those things are happening, and I think that the riots themselves are obviously part of the film in the idea, really, of a more satirical idea that, a vigilante has to impose law and order, and that we must clamp down on these sort of gangs. And originally, when I wrote the script, the riots hadn't happened. It was a drug gang, working in the poor council estates, the social housing. And he dealt with them as a gang, and he fought them, and the bicycle incident happened, and then he killed the guy. So the riots, were a big feature, especially on the BlackBerry Messenger, and I'm sort of treating it a bit, obviously satirically, in the sense that he's a self-appointed vigilante. I don't condone anything he does, in the sense of I don't say, oh, he had to go and do that at any point. He thinks he's the answer, but of course he isn't. There were a few people who misinterpreted the film and think that I was defending him, but I only say in the film he does do some nice things, like he rescues those women, which is part of his empowerment. He doesn't abuse those women that he rescues. He sets them free, and he doesn't take advantage of them. But that's because many serial killers, like other human beings, are not 100% bad. They may be 99% bad. But, Ted Bundy, he would work the late-night Samaritan call centres, saving young girls or whatever from suicide, and then go pick a young girl the same night to slaughter. The conundrum, the paradox is there in these people. So my kind of, I tried to create a character who was sympathetic enough to follow, but in terms of law and order, the riots, society's ills, I certainly wasn't hoping or believing that anyone would think that I was condoning what he was doing.
Time for one more? Anyone?
A quick one then.
Yes.
I'm just curious if you know what Maya says when they put Baz' colleague in the freezer in Russian.
Our Father who art in heaven, basically. Forgive us. She is asking for forgiveness for what she did. Actually, it is a prayer. It is a Slavonic prayer. I don't know the exact prayer, but it is basically starts something like Our Father in heaven. But she is really feeling remorse because, of course, the woman didn't deserve to die, and she has become. Of course, I hope people realise that at the end she doesn't know that Baz is a serial killer at all. But of course, she's very sad at what she's done.
Yeah, but I was curious if she's praying or she's agreeing.
Well, I would hope, obviously she's fanatically loyal to him, but I would hope the fact that you see that she's tears in her eye, that she's not happy about the fact she killed the woman, and yet she has become, she's been dragged down into that morass of which she doesn't know how big the morass is around Baz, but she knows that she's pretty sure that Baz killed the people who abused her, and she's been corrupted by violence is really what's happened. The girls were not stupid, they heard the struggle and the guys that then go missing, so most of the girls must have probably realised that he killed them, especially when he produces the gun. So yeah, it was meant to be serious note there.
Do you want to close off?
Well, no, I think that it was good to hear that you kind of you got in the spirit there. From what I heard the last, it's good that people seem to go with the flow of the film, and not rebel against it. But if anyone thinks it was too sick or things were wrong, I can take questions privately in a mature way, And the last thing, yes, the cat you saw in the film was our family cat, the one that she had a little role there. Yeah, that was Marnie. Good action cat.
Okay, I'm going to say a big thank you to Stuart for
Thank
coming.
you. Yes.
And a big thank you to you guys for coming.